Wake up YouTube, my name's Hunter and welcome to another episode of The Hunter Show. This episode, I'll be looking into my personal top 10 list of rags to riches stories. Our Pokemon that used to stink, but then one small thing changed and poof, suddenly they became instant successes overnight. Now a little disclaimer before we start. In competitive Pokemon, a Pokemon's strength is not determined purely by its stats or ability, but by its usage. This seems a little bit counterintuitive, but basically we first assume that most players will always use whatever Pokemon they need to win. Then, this makes sense where if a Pokemon is used most of the time or has a very high usage, then we get a feeling that that Pokemon must be good at helping you win because a lot of players use it and therefore must be one of the strongest Pokemon. Secondly, this list applies primarily to single battles, and I acknowledge upfront that it's a bit subjective. I tried to take into account how many tiers a Pokemon jumped and how much they influence the metagame, but at the end of the day, these are just my opinions, and if you feel like I missed a Pokemon or have your own personal list in a different order, it'll be pretty cool if you leave it in the comments below. That out of the way, let's get started. Number 10 on my list is Blaziken in Generation 5. Now Blaziken holds the spot for the first and only starter that's ever been banned to Ubers. In Gen 3, it was a notable threat, but then Infernape came along in Diamond and Pearl and stole the show. Determined not to be outdone, Blaziken came back in full force in Black and White with the ability Speed Boost. Especially with the new weathers, the game was soon focused on Blaziken, and because its ability meant that if you even gave one free turn to Blaziken, its attack would double and its speed would just keep going up. One free turn was all it took for Blaziken to send a match spinning out of control, and it was quickly banished forever to the Ubers, where it languishes to this day. Number 9 on my list, Ditto from Generation 5. Now Ditto's always had a pretty cool trick. It could become any Pokemon instantly, copy all of its moves, stats, even its ability, except for HP. But the problem was that the turn you used Transform, Ditto still had to take a hit with its terrible trash stats. This means that often Ditto would die before ever transforming. Now the Dream World changed all of this and gifted Ditto with the ability Imposter, which means that the second you send it into battle, it's automatically transformed without taking any hits with its terrible pre-transformation stats. Although Ditto didn't gain any tiers, it changed the way the game was played because suddenly Ditto became an important check against setup sweepers. It's the reason why a lot of people at the beginning of Black and White used to run in Prison, and a lot of Pokemon that sweep with Return now sweep with Frustration to try to catch Dittos off balance since it doesn't copy the opponent's happiness value. Let this be a lesson to any player that lets their Metagross get up to +6. Ditto can instantly get a sack, come in, and now you're the one being swept. Cool, huh? Espeon Generation 5. Now Espeon's place on this list is a bit hard to decide. I feel like it could be worse than Ditto and Blaziken, however I also feel like the introduction of Espeon marked a fundamental shift in how we played the game, and that's really what these rags to riches stories are about. Now Espeon used to be a sweeper and an okay-ish baton passer. However, the Dream World, again, gave it a new ability, Magic Bounce. This changed the way we played the Hazard War in the game. Usually, when you played a match, you tried to get hazards off your side of the field with a Rapid Spinner and tried to get Stealth Rock and Spikes on your opponent's side of the field. However, Espeon allows you to get hazards off your side of the field without using Rapid Spin. It also gives you a really easy switch into Pokemon that want to use Sleep moves, and you don't have to tech in a Sleep Talker. The biggest change, however, in my opinion of what Espeon's ability did, was how it gave Baton Pass teams a new life in the fast-paced environment of Black and White. Now, it was extremely difficult for Baton Pass teams to get the time needed to use Ingrain in Black and White because they were constantly taking pressure from fast offensive sweepers. This meant that it was extremely easy to get rid of a Baton Pass team just by pushing Roar or pushing Whirlwind. Additionally, in Black and White, Taunt goes through substitutes. This means that Baton Pass teams were automatically stopped if the opponent used Taunt. Espeon, though, changes that, because Espeon, when it's sent in off a proper prediction, allows you to reflect Taunt, reflect Roar, reflect Whirlwind, and gives Baton Pass players a solid answer to a lot of their counters and revitalize the whole team archetype. Number 7 on my list, a tie between Wobbuffet and Magneton, both in Gen 3. First, let me just go off the record and say I'm happy because this is the first Pokemon on our list that the Dream World didn't boost. So let's talk about Magneton. Magneton was a lackluster Pokemon when it was first released in Red and Blue because it was pretty much an inferior Jolteon. The addition of a Steel type in Gold and Silver just made it even worse because it now took extra damage from Ground type moves. Same, Wobbuffet was okay in Gold and Silver, but both really shined in Ruby and Sapphire. They both got the abilities Magnet Pull and Shadow Tag, which allowed them to trap opponents' Pokemon, making Wobbuffet Uber's level and Magneton OU. Since then, they've paved the way for the rise of tons of other trappers like Gothitelle and Mega Gengar, and this is also not the last tie we'll see on this list. Number 6, Scizor in Generation 4. Now, Scizor got 3 things in Generation 4 that turned it from a questionable baton passer in Ruby and Sapphire to a top-tier monster. First, it got U-turn, which lets it switch after hitting off a pretty strong stab attack. This was good, but it was not nearly good enough to redeem Scizor. It also got the ability Technician, which makes its 40 power move 60 power. But once again, this was pretty useless in Diamond and Pearl. I mean, what is it going to boost? Quick Attack? But then in Platinum, Scizor got the move Bullet Punch, a 40 power, 90 due to stab and technician priority move. Scizor suddenly with these 3 things became the king of the Diamond Pearl Platinum OU. Its Bullet Punch was tearing teams to shred, and its U-turn was predicting very easy switches. Truly a tyrant. Number 5 on my list, Ninetales from Generation 5. Here we go again with the Dream World. Now, back to the Dream World. Ninetales was a so-so Pokemon from Generations 1 through 4, but then in Generation 5 it got the ability Drought. This completely changed OU because this was the first time in all of its history Permaweather, in the form of rain and sun obviously, had been introduced to the standard metagame. For years, Game Freak had been slowly taunting us with things like chlorophyll Pokemon and swift swimmers, but there was no real consistent way to guarantee weather. In Gen 4, Damp Rock and Sun Rock teams found some success, but it wasn't until the arrival of Drought Ninetales that this really changed the metagame. As an aside, Sun is actually one of the weakest weathers. It's not weaker than Hail, but it's the second weakest. That's because its auto-inducer, Ninetales, loses to the 3 other Perma-setters, Politoed for Rain, Tyranitar and Hippowdon for Sand. However, a brutal combination of Dugtrio and Ninetales started to turn this around. Dugtrio wins one-on-one against Tyranitar and Politoed, and therefore, because it traps the opponent's Pokemon, the opponent just had to wait for you to bring in your Tyranitar, bring in your Politoed, and bam! Dugtrio would swoop in, trap for the kill, and then the Sun team would just waltz all over your team because they still have their Ninetales left. This combination to win the Weather War caused this Nine-tailed fox to definitely leave its mark on the metagame. Number 4 on my list, Mega Gengar in Generation 6. Now I know what you guys must be thinking. Come on, Hunter. He was OU in Generation 5, he's been one of the only Pokemon to be OU in all 6 generations. How on earth is Gengar number 4 on the biggest comeback mons list of all time? And I agree. Gengar had a really high place to start off from at the end of Gen 5, top of the OU. And he only jumped 1 tier from OU to Ubers. So how much better could Gengar really have gotten in Gen 6 to justify getting number 4? Easy. A lot. Gengar was almost banned from Ubers, not for being too good, but for breaking the game. Those of you who saw my Mega Rayquaza video, side note, you should probably watch my Mega Rayquaza video, will remember that Mega Rayquaza got banned for just being too strong for the Ubers to handle. But Gengar was different. Gengar got the ability Shadow Tag, which let it, like Wobbuffet, trap Pokemon and prevent their trainers from switching them out. Now this seems at the surface like a nice ability. Powerful, yes, but game breaking, I don't see really how. However, Mega Gengar changed the idea of what trapping was. Because it used to be that you could just 1v1 a couple Pokemon, and a lot of the trappers were mediocre. However, Gengar can 1v1 tons of relevant Pokemon, and people started bringing attention to the very idea that the way Mega Gengar's Shadow Tag works just violates the very core game mechanics of Pokemon. I'll probably do a video on this in the future, but the idea is that in Pokemon there are 2 options any trainer can always do. Switch and attack. In game, most trainers don't switch. I'm talking about like the Elite Four and gym leaders, and this makes it really easy to beat them compared to a human. Switching is a massive mechanic that dramatically changes how the game is played because it gives you options that normally you wouldn't have. Rather than 1 of 4 moves, you now have 1 of 4 moves plus 1 of 5 Pokemon to switch into. The ability to prevent your opponent from switching can be argued as being game-breaking because it violates one of the things that makes Pokemon Pokemon. Now there was a very huge controversy over this, and a suspect vote was put in the Ubers, and it's really controversial. Mega Gengar ended up not being banned. However, for starting discussions that might lead to trapping abilities being banned out of ideology in the future, Mega Gengar definitely gets number 4 on this list. Number 3, Azumarill and the Fairies in Gen 6. So what's more drastic than giving a Pokemon a new metagame defining ability? Easy. Giving it a new metagame defining type. Just for some context, in Gen 1, Psychic was the dominant type. As a result, Game Freak added Dark and Steel types to the game and buffed Bug and Ghost, in order to clamp down and stop Psychic type Pokemon. However, in the last 2 generations, we've seen the rise of another rogue type. Since there's only one type in the game that resists Dragon, Steel, Dragon has always been a fantastic attacking type. Gen 4 gave it 2 great stabs, Outrage on the physical side, and it literally every Dragon learns Draco Meteor on the special side in Diamond and Pearl. Suddenly, what had been a good type became unstoppable. Not even new Steel types like Ferrothorn or the rise of old ones like Scizor could stop Dragon types. Suddenly, you started seeing teams called Dragmag, with just 4 dragons, Magnezone and Magneton. Magnezone and Magneton would trap and kill Steel types ASAP, kind of like how Dugtrio traps Weather Setters like we discussed, and you would suddenly have no defense against 4 dragons, all of one type from running over your team. Game Freak clearly saw this as a massive problem and introduced a new type, Gen 6, called Fairy, that was actually immune to dragons. Suddenly, Pokemon like Azumarill, which was okay, shot up because they could suddenly set up and gain advantage on a rogue Outrage. Plus, types like Poison, which used to be the worst attacking type in the game, started to become a viable stab option for Pokemon like Gengar and Nidoking. From taking a Pokemon like Azumarill who used to be terrible, or a Pokemon like Clefable that used to be okay, and giving it the ability to stop a rampaging Dragonite or Salamence, Fairy types get number 3 on this list. Number 2, Mega Charizard and Mega Mawile in Generation 6. Here we go. These two are ties because they essentially represent the same concept, bottom-tiered Pokemon suddenly being reborn. However, unlike Mawile, Charizard hasn't been trash all its life. Charizard used to be a fantastic Fire-type Pokemon. However, with the arrival of Stealth Rocks in Generation 4, not even the fact that it was everyone's favorite starter back in Red and Blue could save Charizard. It suddenly fell into the depths of NU. However, Gen 6 brought both of these the ability to see the light of day when they were both gifted fantastic new Megas. And really, although these guys get number 2, they represent the struggle of tons of Pokemon that got reborn with Megas. Heracross, Gardevoir, Sceptile, and even Pokemon that never ever got to taste the limelight, like Houndoom and Pinsir, suddenly through Mega Evolution have been given a massive mechanic and a massive chance to see the light of day and to impact the game. Mega Evolution has been a massive change, and it definitely deserves number 2 on this list. And that leaves number 1 on my list of most rags to riches Pokemon stories as Pollito in Generation 5. Now, I know I did Ninetales, but you really cannot understate how dramatic Gen 5 was to Pollito. It is the OG rags to riches story, and it was in part my inspiration for this video. In Gens 2 to 4, no one ever used Pollito. And to be fair, why would you? Its stats were pretty mediocre, and it had a lot of competition from Milotic, Swampert, Suicune, Slowbro, pretty much any water type not named Magikarp. But it wished upon a star, and in Gen 5, it got its one saving grace, the ability that would define Gen 5 forever: Drizzle. Now, if you look at most of the tier placement and the bans from Generation 5, all of them come down to Pollito. Rain brought Swift Swimmers into the tier, boosted water moves, gave Hurricane and Thunder perfect accuracy, and neuters Sun and Sand, and all of these were brought to the table because of Pollito. The first complex ban in all of Smogon history, Aldron's proposal in order to ban Swift Swim and Drizzle on the same team, was put in place to stop the monster Drizzle had become. And the reason it was enacted is because prior to its enactment, literally the entire OU tier was Swift Swim and Rain teams. And this still didn't stop anything. Dragonite, Thundurus, Toxicroak, Keldeo, Tentacool. So many prominent Pokemon were used solely because of Rain or received a massive boost because of Rain. Because of this Pokemon, Pollito. And it's because of this Pollito gets number 1. Most Pokemon on this list defined types, defined abilities, got banned to Ubers, but only one went from absolute gutter trash to the most influential Pokemon in the game: Pollito. So there we have it. That's my list. Go ahead, like, comment, subscribe if you guys enjoyed this video, and like I said earlier, if you really think I put things in the wrong order or left something out of this list that should have been on there, just put it in the comment section below and I'll have a great time reading everyone's suggestions. So go ahead, comment below, and peace out.